What's up guys? Today we're going to be doing another Q&A video, so if you want to get your questions in videos like this in the future, make sure that you watch the YouTube community tab and my Twitter. I put posts up on both asking for questions whenever I'm going to do one of these videos, which is usually about once a month. So let's hop right in. The first question comes from Konzi over on Twitter, and he asks, what do you think the Halo Infinite battle rifle should be like functionally? Similar to Halo 3 or more of a laser beam, as it's likely to be the main weapon in competitive from what we have seen. I really like this question because not only do the weapon mechanics of the battle rifle matter, it's also going to apply to the whole sandbox. What I would be looking for out of a battle rifle, or just the sandbox in particular, is something similar to Halo 3, but not all the way to that degree. I think we need some degree of bullet travel and having to lead players when they're far away, but when they're close or mid-range, I don't mind if guns act a little bit more hit scan than they do in Halo 3 particularly. At long ranges, I do want people to have to lead players if you're using something like the battle rifle, but I don't think in close and mid-range battles, you really should have to be leading people too much. I think having those slower projectile speeds adds a element of skill into the game a little bit, that having those fast projectile speeds that things like Halo 5 or Halo Reach have kind of negate, just because in those games you just literally put the crosshair right on the enemy and you don't have to do any type of prediction or anything like that. You just know you're going to hit them. Another nice thing about having slower projectiles for the weapons is you're going to get lasered across the map less often. Think about when you play Halo 3 and you're playing BTB. While it does occasionally happen that you'll get 4-shot by the battle rifle on some of the big team battle maps like Valhalla or Sand Trap, it's a lot more rare than if you're playing something like Halo Reach and you get just absolutely lasered by the DMR, or you're playing Halo 5, especially pre-battle rifle nerf, when that thing was just an absolute laser, even in Warzone or BTB. Alright, the next question is another question over on Twitter, and this one comes from JustAlex1997, and they ask, will Halo the Master Chief Collection receive any major support after the release of Halo Infinite? Or, now that all the games are out on PC, will we instead get the last big issues ironed out and a couple of new additions until that day? I do have an upcoming video that I'm working on that's going to go more into depth about what I kind of expect to see from MCC over the next year and then into the future, but I don't think we're going to see a whole ton of MCC support after Infinite comes out. I think it'll be pretty similar to Halo 5, where once Infinite comes out, MCC is not really going to get any updates unless Infinite happens to totally flop or something like that, and they need to pivot back to the Master Chief Collection. I do think over the next year or however long until Infinite comes out, we will continue to get some of the issues of MCC worked out, along with some of the features that have been promised. Maybe we'll get the custom game browser, maybe we'll get some of those Halo Reach armors that are missing like the GRD, etc. I would love to see MCC continue to get actual cool support after Halo Infinite comes out, but I'm not sure if they're really going to do that, since they are going to want the player base playing Halo Infinite and probably not as much playing the Master Chief Collection. One thing that I don't think we think about a lot is the Master Chief Collection doesn't really have any monetization models besides you just buying the game, whereas Halo Infinite is going to have a whole ton of them. So it sucks to say, but from 343's end and Microsoft's end, they're going to want you on the game that makes them consistent money, rather than the game that made them money once a long time ago and they're not going to make any more money off of you. I know that's kind of a crappy thing to say, but it just kind of is how it is. It reminds me a lot how if you go on Steam and you try and buy some of the old Call of Duty games, they're all still basically full price because Activision wants you to play the newest title, and that's the only game they really care about. They don't care if you want to go back and play Black Ops 2 even if that was a good game, they want you playing Cold War. So I hope that kind of answers your question. Like I said, I will have a more in-depth video. I'm going to write a script for it and everything that'll probably be out next week, talking about the Master Chief Collection now that it's complete and what its future is going to look like. The next question actually comes from two different people who kind of asked the same thing, but basically Noah O and Dumblord Plays asked varieties of, do you have another job, or is YouTube your only job, etc. I think this might actually be a good time for me to kind of share some knowledge with you guys about sort of how much money small YouTubers make, because it's basically nothing. And so let me show you guys some of my analytics and you kind of see what I'm talking about. I don't know if YouTube is a huge fan of me sharing this stuff, but I figure it kind of will help you guys understand where not only me as a creator is at, but also just tons of other small creators. Unless you are getting a ton of views on YouTube, you are not going to be doing this full time. You have to be getting in the close to million, probably million plus views per month. And that's probably on the lower end of what you would want if you wanted to do this as a comfortable living. Now that totally depends on the genre of videos you make. Obviously, I make gaming videos, which are going to have a lower CPM than something like a finance video, etc. But yeah. Okay, so here are kind of my analytics for the last month. Like I said, I don't know if YouTube is a fan of this, so I don't know. We'll see what happens to this video. But as you can see, over the past 28 days, I've gotten about 50,000 views roughly, and this is a lower amount of views than I normally get. I know it says this is higher, but over the past 4 or 5 months, I usually get a little bit more views than this. I'm usually in between the 50 to 75K range. It's just kind of been a down period since there's not a whole lot going on in Halo. Now, if you look over here, you'll see that my estimated revenue for this is about $108. So no, I definitely have a full-time job. I just kind of do this as a hobby. If one day I was making a lot of money off YouTube, I'd love to do it full-time, but obviously I'm nowhere near that at all. So it just kind of is what it is. You can kind of see, if you look at this page, you can see my RPM, which is the amount of money I make per 1,000 views period. And you can see it fluctuates over the past 20 days, etc. And then if you look at my CPM, now this is how much money I get per 1,000 monetized views, and that's going to be higher than the RPM because this doesn't account for everyone that uses AdBlock, etc. Anyways, I hope that kind of answers your question. If you ever want me to go more in depth about kind of how the financial side of YouTube works, I can do that in a future video. Just let me know. Next up is a question from Bring Halo Back on Twitter, one of my good buddies, and he asks, what is your favorite animal in the Halo universe? What are those bird-looking things in Halo Reach called? The MOAs or whatever? Those. Next up, we have two guys that again kind of asked similar questions, but Paleo and Squatting Bear, they both kind of asked if I think that we're going to see something strange in Halo Infinite. And to that question, I'm not totally sure what you mean, but I do think we're going to get some cool and out there game mode that we haven't seen in Halo before. So if that's what you mean by strange, then probably. All of the recent Halos have all taken their spin at a innovative game mode, and whether you liked them or not, they have tried something, right? Halo 3 tried Forge, that was the first game that had it. Halo 3 ODST had Firefight, which was new for that game. Halo Reach improved upon Firefight and added Invasion, which was a new game mode. Halo 4 added Spartan Ops, and then Halo 5 added Warzone. So every Halo game, at least since Halo 3, and Halo 2 probably did something, I'm just not as familiar with that one, they've all tried strange game modes, strange and innovative game modes. So I'm sure we're going to see something like that in Infinite. Whether it's a battle royale or maybe it's just huge large scale lobbies, I don't know, but I'm sure we will see something that is pretty strange for Halo in Halo Infinite. Next question over on Twitter comes from Dom Gaming, and he asks, what do you feel is the hardest part of being a content creator, and where would you say your weakness is now as a content creator? And where can I improve today? So I would say the hardest part of being a content creator is trying to disconnect yourself from like the numbers and the analytics. I find myself constantly falling into that hole where I just constantly want to look up how my videos are doing. And if they're doing well, you kind of get that high of like, yeah, my video is doing really well. But when you have videos that aren't performing as well, it's a huge bummer. And I don't think that that is a trap that I am the only one that falls into. I think that's something a lot of YouTubers or even streamers kind of struggle with because you're constantly fighting against analytics. You always want to be growing, but with these websites, especially something like YouTube where everything's controlled by an algorithm, you're going to see a lot of ebb and flow, even if your overall growth is positive. I would say my biggest weakness as a content creator is that I cut a lot of corners when it comes to putting videos out. I don't necessarily put videos out for the sake of putting videos out, but there's a lot of videos where I could have written more laid out scripts instead of just speaking into my microphone, or I could have done a lot more with my editing, and I'll just kind of overlay random unrelated Halo gameplay. And I think those are kind of my two weaknesses. Sometimes I get to the point after working on a video for X amount of hours and I'm just like fried, I just want to be done with it, and that's when I start kind of cutting those corners. Sadly, I don't know how much that's going to improve just because trying to do YouTube as a part-time thing makes it really hard to spend hours upon hours on a video, especially when I'm trying to put multiple videos out in a week. I guess one way I could improve that would be to put out less videos, but then the algorithm might not like that, and I'm probably going to see a lot less traffic on my channel, so I don't know if that's necessarily the direction I should go. Retro Bros over on Twitter asked, do you think the Flood will make a return in Halo Infinite? I'm not totally sure if the Flood will. I haven't followed enough of the lore and everything to know if there's been signs that they're going to return. All I would kind of say is, I don't mind if the Flood returns, but hopefully they're more fun to play against than they have been in previous games. Usually the Flood sections of games like Halo 3 and Halo CE are my least enjoyable sections of those games. So if they find a way to make them more fun and enjoyable, or just use them more as a change of pace and less of the focus in levels, then that could be pretty fun. If there's just little sections of levels where you fight the Flood, or little side quests where you fight the Flood, that could be really fun, but I don't know if I want entire levels dedicated to it like we've seen in the past. I will say one thing that I think will be really important in Halo Infinite, especially in the campaign, is having good enemy variety, and the Flood will help with that. I hope we get to fight things other than just the Banished. Maybe we still see the Prometheans, or maybe we see things like the Flood, etc. Hopping back over to YouTube, Mr. Theta asks, is there a game series or genre you wish you had tried earlier or feel like you didn't get enough time to try? I would say for me, if there was one game that I wish I had kind of tried during its heyday, is honestly Classic WoW. Now, obviously, I could have played it when Classic WoW was brought back last year, but I never experienced Classic WoW when it came out back in the mid-2000s, and that's just something that even playing it now, you can't get the experience like it would have been back then when the gaming landscape was totally different. Especially since now I've played the more modern WoW, it makes going back and playing Classic WoW a lot different since I never played that and I don't have the nostalgia for it. Shroudy asks, how are you? I'm pretty good. How about you? Sahil asks, why didn't the Diduct brush his teeth? Well, he's dirty, so duh. And Yeehaw asks, I'm sure it's been asked before, but what does Halo mean to you personally? Halo to me is just kind of a fun escape from life. I can hop on it and I can have fun with my friends playing all sorts of different things, whether it's campaign, custom games, matchmaking, etc. It's just a good place to blow off some steam and have some fun. And occasionally, if I'm really feeling in the mood, I can try and be a little more competitive in it. And for the last question, over on Twitter, Snowman asks, what is your favorite Halo memory from all the mainline Halo games, aka only the Bungie era? I would say my favorite Halo memory from that era of Halo is honestly the Halo 3 launch. I didn't go to a midnight launch for Halo 3, but I picked it up the next day after I got off school, and popping that disc into my Xbox and just seeing my entire friends list playing Halo 3 was crazy. I played through the Legendary campaign with one of my friends that night, and then after we were done with that the next day, we hopped into matchmaking, and it was just set from there. I just absolutely fell in love with Halo, and that's where it all started. And it was just crazy. Every day I would come home and I would get on Halo, and just everyone was playing Halo, and that's just a feeling that we don't get anymore since Halo's not the top dog. It was just crazy, like walking into school and everyone would be talking about Halo, everyone would come home, everyone would play Halo. You would watch TV shows and they would mention Halo 3 and everything. It was totally crazy. Anyways, guys, that's going to do it for all the questions and for this video. If you enjoyed this video, you know what to do. If you want to catch me live, I stream on Twitch sometimes. I should be streaming tonight, so come stop by and I'll probably be grinding squad battles or doing something else, so who knows, I'll be playing something Halo. And if that isn't enough me for you, you can also follow me over on Twitter, and I'll see you all next time.